You got about ready? And then we want one more person to come out and we'll get started. Done. Oh, right there. Okay, guys. Whenever you're ready. Okay, guys. Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta get up and get over here. There you go. Sorry. So sorry.
Please be seated. It's a beautiful morning in our parks. Good morning. Thank you for joining us here on Nebraska's Centennial Mall at the Chief Standing Bear statue. The statue behind me was dedicated in 2017 and is a very proper location for the official dedication of the stamp honoring Chief Standing Bear. My name is Maggie Stuckey-Ross. I'm the City of Lincoln Parks and Recreation Director. Nebraska's Centennial Mall is a celebration of our state's past, present, and future. Stretching 7 blocks through downtown Lincoln, Centennial Mall shows people of Nebraska and visitors what's important to Nebraskans and what has influenced our state throughout the years. Whether a person is approaching from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln or looking up at the state capitol, Centennial Mall has long been a continuous celebration of the good life. The redesign of Centennial Mall recognized and celebrated the legacy and stewardship in Nebraska. It allows education and storytelling of our state's natural and civic history while highlighting the many unique aspects and features of our state. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the Mistress of Ceremony for the Chief Standing Bear First Day of Issue Stamp Dedication, my colleague and friend, Judy Goshkolas.
Thank you, Maggie. And good morning, everyone. Thank you, Creator, for this beautiful day, and we hope that you'll keep the rain for later. I'd like to thank you for joining us for the official dedication of the Postal Service's Chief Standing Bear Forever Stamp. My name is Judy Goshkolas. I am the Executive Director of the Nebraska Commission on Indian Affairs, and I am honored as a member of the Ponca tribe to be the Master or Mistress of Ceremonies this morning. It is so amazing that the story of this Nebraska Native American civil rights leader has progressed from Standing Bear being considered a non-person by the United States government in 1879 to today in 2023 being recognized by that same government with a stamp honoring him as an American icon. This story of an Indigenous rights hero is truly and deservedly an American story. And with this stamp, his legacy is further etched into our nation's consciousness. At this time, please rise for the American Legion Post number 3 Honor Guard. Please remain standing for the national anthem performed by Mike Maher.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Mike, for that beautiful song. That was amazing. And many thanks to the American Legion Post Number 3 Honor Guard. Please remain standing as we have the Ponca Flag song performed by the Horse Drum Group. Please be seated. Thank you, Horse Drum. Another round of applause for Horse Drum. Today we're very fortunate to have several special dignitaries in the audience. I would like to ask you to stand when I call your name and then be seated. I apologize if I overlook anyone that came late and wasn't on my list. So with that, we will start with members of the Ponca Tribal Council, Chairwoman Candace Schmidt, Susie Baker, Shauna Carpenter, Fallon McAlpin, Joanne Schlotman. From the Winnebago Tribal Council, Kenneth Mallory. All the way from Oklahoma, the Vice Chairman of the Ponca Tribe of Oklahoma, Robert Collins. The Executive Director of the National Congress of American Indians and former Chairman of the Ponca Tribe, my dear friend Larry Wright, Jr. Governor Jim Pillen. University of Nebraska President Ted Carter. Ray Ringland representing U.S. Senator Deb Fischer. Connor Smith representing U.S. Congressman Mike Flood. State Senator Robert Clements. State Senator Jane Raybould. U.S. District Judge John M. Gerard. Lincoln City Councilman Benny Show. Powwow Princesses. And last, descendants of Chief Standing Bear. Thank you all for coming today and supporting us and joining in this great historic celebration. Now it's an honor to present our dedicating official from the Postal Service's Board of Governors. The Honorable Anton Hajar was appointed to the board by President Joe Biden in 2021, and he currently serves as the Vice Chairman. The Postal Service Board of Governors is comparable to a corporation's board of directors. They oversee and direct the organization's expenditures, long-range planning, and strategic direction, and including its 10-year plan, Delivering for America, which is the roadmap for improving service, reliability, and modernizing the postal network across the United States of America. The governor previously served as the General Counsel of the American Postal Workers Union, AFL-CIO. He has also been an advisor and pro bono attorney in the employment discrimination cases, and he continues to serve as a legal advisor to the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee. Everyone please give a warm welcome to the Honorable Anton Hajar.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm honored to be here in Nebraska today representing the United States Postal Service. We are hard at work strengthening and modernizing the Postal Service for future generations. And I hope to see us working more with American Indian communities in the years to come, taking advantage of the authorization in the 2022 Postal Reform Act to provide services to tribal governments. But today we are here to honor an individual who is so important to his people and so important to the history of our nation. For more than a century, the United States Postal Service has used postal stamps to celebrate the legacy of great Americans, and we are proud to do that today with Chief Standing Bear. I am a man, said Chief Standing Bear in his court hearing nearly 145 years ago. Such a simple statement, yet so profound in its importance. For, although the United States was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, it took our country far too long to recognize the humanity in many of its people, particularly the American Indians who lived on these lands for thousands of years. Chief Standing Bear was committed to the Ponca people and to his own family. It was out of love that he worked to fulfill his son's dying wish to be buried in his native Nebraska. It was out of love that he challenged the United States government's policies towards American Indians. And it was out of love that he took the U.S. government to court, asserting simply that he was a person with rights under U.S. law. In D. Brown's seminal book, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, he recounts the sad and tragic U.S. efforts to relocate the Ponca people. It was May of 1877 when soldiers arrived at the Ponca village to move the tribe to what was then known as Indian Territory in Oklahoma, more than 500 miles to the south. Chief Standing Bear recalled, "The soldiers came with their guns and bayonets. They aimed their guns at us, and our people and our children were crying." On the first morning of the 50-day journey that would result in the illness and death of many Poncas, a heavy thunderstorm caused a flash flood in the nearby river. The sudden surge of water swept several soldiers off their horses, and Poncas plunged in and rescued them, saving the lives of the very men who were forcibly removing them from their native land. In that moment, the Ponca people demonstrated a spirit of great selflessness, community, and decency in the face of harsh injustice. 2 years later, 144 years ago today, in a courtroom in Omaha, a United States judge ruled in favor of Standing Bear, giving his people a measure of justice. It was the first time in history that American Indians were recognized as persons under federal law, entitled to rights. Earlier this year, the American Indian community lost a powerful ally and friend in former South Dakota Senator James Aberrist, someone I long admired. In his time in the United States Senate, Senator Aberrist was instrumental in the passage of multiple laws to help give American Indian tribes more autonomy and protections. Senator Aberrist would later found the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, a group with which I've been involved for many years. For me, his work was a powerful reminder that we must always recognize the humanity inherent in people who are being marginalized or mistreated. And that is the memory and legacy of Chief Standing Bear as well. Now, at this time, I would like to invite our participants to the stage for the official dedication of these stamps. like to thank Art Director Derry Noyes, who designed the stamp. The featured portrait of Chief Standing Bear was done by Thomas Blackshear II, based on a black and white photo taken in 1877, the year the Ponca people were relocated. In the years to come, I hope this stamp will serve as a reminder of the lessons we have learned from Chief Standing Bear and the brave Ponca people, and shine a light on the landmark decision reaffirming our founder's vision that all people are created equal and are entitled to equal justice under the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Najjar. That was beautiful. At this time, it is my honor to introduce Joe Starita, our first speaker, a native of Lincoln and an acclaimed investigative reporter, historian, Emeritus University of Nebraska professor, and author of several books on American Indians, including I Am a Man, Chief Standing Bear's Journey for Justice. Please give a warm welcome to our friend, Joe Starita.
Imagine that it's Christmas week, 1878, and your only son, a 16-year-old boy by the name of Bearshield, is curled up on the bottom of a damp Army canvas tent in northern Oklahoma, dying of malaria. But before his eyes close in death, he begs his father to take his body back to their beloved homeland on the Nebraska Niobrara River. So on the afternoon of January 2nd, 1879, Chief Standing Bear dressed Bearshield in his best clothing, wrapped him in a buffalo robe, put him in the back of a rickety buckboard wagon, and he and 29 others, 21 women and children, many of whom were very sick, and 9 men began walking more than 500 miles back to their beloved sacred homeland along the Niobrara River. At that point in time, the government of the United States had entered into 364 treaties with Native American people, and they had broken all 364. But this middle-aged chief of the Ponca tribe was not going to break the promise that he had made to his only son. So they began on a morning that came in at 19 below zero, walking into the face of a Canadian blizzard with very little winter clothing, very little food, very little money, and they kept going. One day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time. They burrowed into open haystacks in the open fields of Kansas to keep from freezing to death. They rummaged for field corn and boiled it over an open fire to keep from starving to death. And after about 3 months, they made it to the home of their friends and relatives on the Omaha Reservation. And it wasn't long before the United States military found out that 30 Ponca had illegally left their reservation in Oklahoma, and a detachment of soldiers was sent to round them up and march them back to Fort Omaha. And when they walked across the lower parade ground that morning in late March, the highest ranking military man in the United States Army, Brigadier General George Crook, stood on the steps of the general's quarters and watched this progression of 30 Ponca walk across, and he was shocked at what he saw. People who were barely alive, children who stumbled and crawled, women who had clumps of skin hanging off of their elbows like sacks of charred bacon because they had been so severely frostbitten. And the general did what all military men do. He contacted his superior in Chicago, Lieutenant General Philip Sheridan, who had some years earlier, said that the only good Indian is a dead Indian. And he asked Lieutenant General Sheridan what should he do, and his orders were to turn their faces south and march them back to Oklahoma as soon as he could. And Brigadier General George Crook knew that was a death sentence. So he did the one thing that military men are never supposed to do, defying the order of a superior. That night, in the cover of darkness, after midnight, he saddled his horse and rode to the office of the assistant editor of the Omaha World Herald and said he had a story he thought that Thomas Henry Tibbles should write. And by, Thomas Henry Tibbles interviewed Standing Bear through an interpreter, wrote a story, and that story started to spread all over the country. It was in Boston, New York, Philadelphia papers, and it was all over Omaha. And the most prominent lawyer in the state of Nebraska happened to read that story. A gentleman, can't make these things up, Andrew Jackson Poppleton. He was the first lawyer admitted to the bar in Omaha, former mayor of Omaha. He was currently the general counsel of the Union Pacific Railroad. He saw that story in the paper and he said, I think we've got a case here. So he agreed to file a suit on Standing Bear's behalf, suing the government of the United States. And by, that case went to trial on the corner of 15th and Dodge Streets in the Federal Building. It lasted 2.5 days. And the very last witness at that trial to determine whether or not a Native American had the right to sue the United States government was this middle-aged chief from this tribe that had lived in Nebraska for more than 2 centuries. And he walked up to the judge and he held out his right hand and he said, that hand is not the color of yours, but if I pierce it, I shall feel pain. If you pierce your hand, you also will feel pain. The blood that will flow from mine will be the same color as yours. The same God made us both. It was a very dramatic moment, and soon people in the courtroom could hear others crying. And the defendant in the case, Brigadier General George Crook, got up from his table and walked over and shook Standing Bear's hand. And if you just stop and think what had happened when this last witness had spoken at this trial. This was the American West in the 1870s, 3 years after the Little Bighorn. A Native American man walked into a white courtroom, took on the most powerful man, military man west of the Mississippi, pleaded his case that he did not deserve to be jailed, that he had the right to bury his son, to a courtroom packed with all white citizens, and then asked a white judge to set him and his people free. And imagine, 144 years ago today, on May 12th, 1879, that's exactly what the judge did. Judge Elmer Dundee, a grizzled grizzly bear hunting frontier judge who had never in his 15 years on the bench issued anything sympathetic to Native Americans, said this was the most tragic, heartfelt human case that he had ever encountered in those 15 years. And he authored a 15-page opinion and decreed within that opinion, for the first time in the 103-year history of the United States, from that day forward, a Native American must legally be regarded as a person within the meaning of the law, entitled to the same constitutional privileges, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as all white citizens. This was a historic achievement, a historic victory for Native American people. No Native American had ever been allowed to go into a federal court and do anything, much less sue the government of the United States and walk out as the winner. It set in motion all kinds of things. And ultimately, it was the lead domino that would lead to the 1924 decision that declared all Native Americans were citizens on the lands they had lived upon for more than 10,000 years. So what if we had a history table before us at which all of our American heroes were seated? What if I handed out 3x5 cards to everybody here and I asked you, put down the names of the 3 people you think should be seated at this table of American history heroes? And then I collected all of these 3x5 cards and I tabulated all the votes, and I'm just going out maybe on a limb here, maybe the limb of a cherry tree, and saying the man who could not lie about chopping down that cherry tree is going to be one of the people you all put at our table of American history heroes. I'm guessing that celebrated kite flyer from Philadelphia is going to be at that table. And that resolute rail splitter from Illinois is going to be seated at our table. And that man who wrote those haunting letters of freedom from his Birmingham, Alabama jail cell is going to be at that table. And that woman who refused to give up her seat on that Montgomery, Alabama bus, she's going to be seated at that table. And I'm just saying, it would be altogether fitting and altogether appropriate, I believe, if we, as a nation of Americans, were to approach that table of American history heroes, and we saw an empty chair with a brass plate above it that said simply, "Reserved, Chief Standing Bearer." Imagine.
Thank you, Joe. That was wonderful, and we appreciate you telling that story to so many people in America. And much of what we have to happen today is because of Joe's leadership. So would you all please give Joe Starita another big round of applause. Our next guest is Candace Schmidt, the chairwoman of the Ponca Tribe of Nebraska. Candace has been active in the tribe for many years in the areas of social service, health, and housing. She has also served on many boards and committees, including the Intertribal Youth Council, Gaming Enterprise Board, Law and Order Code Committee, Education and Educational Trust Committee, as well as the board for the Nebraska Economic Development Association. It is an honor to present Chairwoman Candace Schmidt.
Wow, isn't that just gorgeous? Just absolutely breathtaking. Good morning, relatives, friends, and new friends. I first would like to apologize for speaking in front of my elders. It is an absolute honor to stand here in front of you all today. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge my fellow Ponca Tribal Council members, as well as our fellow Nebraska Tribal chairpersons and Southern Ponca relatives in the audience, as well as council members. Thank you for being here today, sharing this special moment in history with us. I also want to thank the U.S. Postal Service team. Special thanks to Artis, that guy right there, for all your efforts leading up to this event. We really appreciate it. Next, I'd like to introduce our Ponca princesses with Little Miss Ponca Princess, Mila Taylor. Do you want to wave, Mila? Who is also graduating preschool today, so it's a big day for you. Glad you could make it. And as well as our senior Ponca princess, Juana Gibbons. And thank you to all our descendants and tribal members that traveled quite a way to be here today. Chief Standing Bearer is a pillar for the Ponca tribe and one of the pivotal civil rights leaders in American history. Until recently, he was fairly unknown, which is why we are elated that this stamp will help illustrate his story of justice and triumph, which is also our story. It will serve as a symbol of pride and perseverance for all our members, past, present, and future. The Ponca tribe of Nebraska, also known as the Northern Poncas, or Ushni, Cold Ponca, is approaching 5,500 members nationwide. As a non-reservation tribe, we have members spread throughout the country. We have over 20 programs spanning from healthcare to transportation, education, housing, economic development, and many more. Our tribe has 5 office locations and 3 health clinics. The Ponca tribe is a major employer in many of the communities in which we reside. We currently employ approximately 300 people and are growing with expansion projects on the horizon. I share all of this with you today because Chief Standing Bear, his legacy, and his case led to all of this. Everything we have today and can provide our members, he played a part in, along with all the ancestors and leaders that led before me. That's the Ponca way, the Native way, to think 7 generations ahead, because what we do today impacts tomorrow. Great leaders lead with their heart and don't shy away from doing what is hard when it's right. Our great chief acted out of love, the love for his child, which is something any parent can understand, and the love for the homelands, our home right here in Nebraska. Love is a wonderful legacy to leave behind. It unites people and provides a foundation for us to make a difference. I challenge each and every one of us to be a part of something bigger. Let this stamp remind us to be the one to take a stand for justice and for doing what's right. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you all today. Weeblaha, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Schmidt. And as Candace said, our tribe was terminated and restored in 1990. And today, I believe in our audience, we have 4 of the 5 chairmen since our tribe was restored present. And so I'd like to ask Rebecca White, Candace Schmidt, Larry Wright Jr., and Mark Paniska to please rise and be recognized. And I'd also like to dedicate this stamp ceremony to our first chairman after restoration who helped restore our tribe, my dear friend, Fred Leroy. Please stand. Thank you. Our final speaker today is Steve Larrabee Jr., who is the great-great-great-great-grandson of Chief Standing Bear. Steve is a traveling singer and advocate for the sustainable traditional ways of American Indian people. He is a leader in youth education, assisting in cultural discussions and workshops pertaining to the philosophies of Dakota and Ponca ways of life. He also has been an environmental researcher for the National Science Foundation, focusing on protecting and sustaining the economic and cultural pathways of the Buffalo Nation. Please welcome Steve Larrabee Jr.
Oh, Midakyapi. And so now we have come to this place, and you hear the message of the history of the present. And so the people have invited me to speak of the future of our nation. You see this man standing here. Why does he hold his right hand out? In our way as men, we are the protectors of the heart. So we lead with the right, protecting our women and our children and our elderly. We were standing here and a gentleman asked me, he said, "Are you nervous?" I said, "No. This is my country. This is my land. The same land my grandfather and his brothers and his sisters gave their life for here today. There was many like him. And they all had a great bond, and they understood family. They understood relationship. They understood that in order to live and lead a selfless life, you had to understand how to be mindful of what you gathered from the creation that you were a part of. And so today, you want to look ahead. Wow, remove the segregation. Remove the barriers that have separated us for so long. If you go back and you invite them here today, all the great ones, from all the nations, they're going to say, what does that mean, northern, southern? I said, we are the Punka. We are the one. And this is the way it is. The leaders of the people, the head of the people, the head of the sacred, of the medicine. So we carry this within us, within our blood. So today, we must work together. And one thing I want to address, that this term, Native American, we are not Native Americans. Be mindful of that. If you're going to use a term that addresses us so that the public in this society can identify us, use American Indian. Because American Indian is what was used in the treaties, the 377 treaties that were made with our peoples here. And although we are where we are today because of the surrendering of those treaty rights, we still hold an obligation for our relatives who are identified in that way. So be mindful of these things. For all of our grandmas and grandpas told us as we were raised that one day we will be faced with a psychological warfare. It will no longer be physical, for they will have the guns, they will have the numbers, they will have all the systems and the tools to tell your story. But they said, remember to be mindful and to share the truth. To share, not to tell. Because what grandfather and the brothers and the sisters stood for was the sharing of life and the honoring of the innocence of life. So you look and you ask today, well, what is our purpose? Our purpose is our women, is our children. How did he live with this compassion and this love you talk about, this strength? Well, he understood he came from a mother, a grandmother, and then Makochekye, the land where the memory resides. And so there are the resting places of our grandmas and grandpas in this land that he decided to return to. And we were going to come together. Things happened, and it was tough all around. But there's no reason why we can't come together today. Share what we have. You heard these singers. The singers carry the voice of our people. They sing, you hear this word, Hedushka. Why? Those were brave men. And so you look and you ask, you're going to look at this stamp. Now it's here forever. The children will look and say, why does he wear these bear claws? What are those? What is it that he wears? What is this that he wears around his neck? Well, what he wears around his neck represents the journey of life. And the many stones and seeds that we carry, the dots between the lines of life, are these seeds. For as the human beings, we are the carriers of the seeds of life. We are the planters of those seeds of life. And the claws that he wears come from the Bear Nation, Monchu, the grizzly. And the grizzly is so powerful that we revere them because they're the ones, they can die and come back to life. So they can bring that life force back. And we understood them, and they showed us the medicines in this way. And to stand, you stand for what is right. You stand for the life of the people. Do not be afraid of what you do not know. Open yourselves to what is possible for you to become and to grow. And this is the vision that we need together as American Indian people, as Punka people, as the many campfires and the families that make up what little of left that we are. And now today, these people of this land, they come and they ask us, how can we be, how can we live? So reconnect. Pick up a song, pick up a dance, pick up a language. Learn and share the voice and the memory with each other. We are all of value, whether you wrote a book, whether you lead us in the cultural ways. whether now a woman leads us, leads our people, and the many leaders that helped to bring this life back in the 90s. So we are all a value and a piece to it all. So do not remove each other. For we all make this great hoop of life. And that's the only way I can see it forward, is that we should help each other, love one another. Remove your biases and family quarrels. Remove humble yourself. Humble yourself. And do the best that you can do. And so again, I thank you, and remember what he stood for. Compassion, unity, strength, vision. Many things you can see and you'll understand in your own manner and own way. I'm not here to tell you how it is. I'm just here to show you what is. The realities and the truths of life. The realities that my ancestors lived with. And so we have always been identified as the human beings within law, but within the natural law. And we have a way of living with the natural law. And so this is what Grandpa also represented. And remember these things, my relatives, as you continue to use him and to use his image in everything that you do. Always remember what he stood for and practice that. Become that. So, Ohachitulo, Panama Wopada, Metaku Yawasa, Ede Wogide.
Thank you, Steve, for your work to protect Mother Earth and for remembering the mothers and the children as we prepare to honor all of them on Mother's Day. So this next song by Horse Drum, please rise to hear the horse drum sing the closing.
Oh!
if you want something to do this weekend to learn more about the story of Standing Bear, you can watch NET, Standing Bear's Footsteps. That was directed by one of our attendees here today, Christine Layshock. That is an excellent documentary that Nebraska can be proud of. So, we're at the end of our program. This concludes our ceremony. I'd like to encourage you all to write a letter to someone and to one of your loved ones and put the stamp, the Standing Bear stamp on that envelope, and teach your children to do the same and remember their elders, their grandmas, and their grandfathers, and carry on. Before we go, I'd like to thank Governor Anton Hajar and the United States Postal Service and all their work. We have been working with them for the last month, and it's been a pleasure to work with them, as well as Maggie Stuckey-Ross, Joe Starita, Chairwoman Candace Schmidt, Descendant Steve Larby Jr., the American Legion Post number 3, Honor Guard Mike Maher, and of course the Horse Drum Group. A quick reminder before you leave, you can get your Chief Standing Bear stamps and other items at the Postal Service retail booth under the tents immediately to your left. Our participants will also be available there to autograph your programs and other items. And I see some of you wearing the lapel pins, so maybe you'll be one of those lucky people that goes home with a lapel pin. It's been an honor to serve in this capacity, and I want to thank all of our tribal leaders. Pardon me? Okay, at this time, I'm going off script. The United States Postal Service is in charge of this script, by the way, folks, so I want to be respectful. But the Ponca's Cultural Director, Richard Wright, and the Ponca Tribe would like to make a gift presentation to artists who we've been working with for a month on Zoom calls, and he runs a tight ship. Artist is pretty awesome. So please don't be shy. Come up and get your picture taken with the stamp, and have a lovely day. Thank you all so much for joining in this historic celebration. We the hope.